Awesome. Here we are. So today we're diving into the future of decentralized interactions with a look into ERC-8004. With us are David and Marco De Rossi, who are the proposal creators for the EIP, which is focused on enabling trustless agents. The extension to the agent-to-agent protocol includes a crucial trust layer which enables agents to seamlessly interact across diverse organizations without the need for pre-established trust. Trust is increasingly important as agents start to coordinate, and this is a very important standard to be introducing to the general agent ecosystem, which we're going to probably dive into and talk around a lot more in the next hour or so. Firstly, look, everybody, thank you so much for joining. I guess just to start off, a round of introductions. David, would you like to share a bit around your background and what you get up to day to day?
Sure, yeah. I'm David. I work at the EF. I'm leading AI initiatives there. I'm trying to push this vision of making Ethereum more ready to have machines interact directly with the chain. I feel in the past year and a half, we've seen an explosion of these many projects, even these AI L1s that are popping up, which to me is a little bit strange, but also kind of exciting explorations. And yeah, in the past, I was at the AF for 3 years, but I actually left for a year and a half. I was building an AI project myself. And so I kind of really embedded in this space. And I felt that Ethereum has all the ingredients to actually be a very good coordination layer for AIs. But we need to lean into this and kind of start doing kind of the right things to make it really ready for adoption. And yeah, so EIP-8004, which we kind of came up in the last month and a half with Marco, is one of a few projects that we are working on. We are also working on we're doing some research on verifiability, which kind of we have some deep research there and things that will come up in the next few weeks and months. But yeah, so that's kind of who I am and why I'm excited about this space.
Awesome. I mean, just to build on that, so the agent-to-agent protocol mentioned in the IP, is that a project that has been worked on before the standard has been introduced? I don't know if there's color there that you could add just for context to those listening.
Yes. So the A2A project is a protocol that has been first built by a Google team, an engineering team within Google, and then recently, it was donated to the Linux Foundation. And actually, that's I'll maybe let Marco introduce himself and continue here, because that's how we got really connected with Marco, right? Essentially, we were both following this trend, and I think Marco has had this insight that, hey, this seems like they are doing the right move to push it as a standard. I mean, we cannot really tell which the standard is going to be, as we were talking with Shaw, MCP actually has more traction, but maybe it's not thought as agent-to-agent communication first. So we felt that it's kind of a right time to maybe trying to get closer to A2A. And actually, then I got connected at an hackathon in SF. Actually, I got connected to the lead PM on this project, and that's how we kind of started getting more involved. But I'll also let Marco introduce himself and share his on this. Yeah.
Hi guys, Marco here. Well, in terms of background, I've built companies in the last 20 years now in education, trying to help teachers in K-12 and Web3. And one of these Web3 companies has been acquired by MetaMask, which is why I started collaborating with Consensus. And after having worked in other areas, I'm now focused on AI because I'm super excited also personally about the intersection between AI and Web3. Because I actually, as a citizen, I'm very concerned about what could happen if things go wrong in the long term, if we don't have a user-owned AI that is privacy preserving, that I want to own my data. I want to make sure that the AI answers to me, that I want to be the owner of my AI, and I don't want. So all this stuff is very important to me personally, and so I'm just very happy to be able, in the short term, of course, to work on how wallets will evolve to be easier to be used by normies thanks to AI. So AI is a great innovator at an interface level, but more long term working on automation and agents, of course, drops here, and in decentralized AI in general. And exactly because I'm so in love with that, I'm a bit concerned because I don't see, frankly, the traction that I'd like to see in decentralized AI. And because for Web3, we have the excuse that, yes, we have only defined a use case, but for AI, we have like 700 million people that use ChatGPT in May. So we don't have any excuse. And so that's the story of a standard. I was a bit concerned in seeing all these small Web3 projects creating their own schema. For example, how to create agents marketplace, how to define how I can contribute with my agents to the marketplace, when in general the traction to agents is lacking. I think it's not super strong. So it's crazy. It's like inventing a library before having invented books. And so when I've seen Agent to Agent by Google being donated to Linux Foundation, I said, well, that's great. But then reading the specs, I realized that, very well done, by the way, but they miss the trust problem, because Agent to Agent is designed to be used within the boundaries of organizations. So you trust the agent just because it's done by your colleague. So there is no discovery, there is no way to decide who to trust. And so I reached out to the EF leadership first, and then to Davide, and we started working together on this.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase maybe where we're at with the general agent ecosystem, and I'm sure we can dive in a bit more later around this, maybe where we're at in regards to autonomous agents. I mean, sure, over to you.
Yeah, I'm Shaw. I created Eliza. Now we've got a whole open source team that's continued to build it. We just shipped 1.0 about a month and a half ago, and we are getting asked all the time, like, well, what can agents do? What can I do with this? I think that what really interested me was I came from a world of like character.ai and people like talking to agents just for the sake of it. And I thought, like, well, what if we could give them tools and identity and all of these things? And to me, the coolest thing I could make was like a world of agents interacting with each other, and not because even like I don't think the tech is there for a lot of the expectation, but I think it's just fun. It's just cool. It's like a new paradigm of games and storytelling and entertainment. And I think that has been like almost wholly lost on the like, hey, we should just do bots that trade. Like, for one, bots that trade have already been like a thing for 40 years, and they're already like really good at it. And if you become a quant, you can just do that. And you could do that before AI, and it's the same now. But we have this incredible new interface to like open up the doors to these new experiences and to these new things. And so I'm very much with Marco. I think that like I see most people here in this space like really, really saying, oh, we need a network and marketplace and all and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what we need is a Schelling point where we can actually get the disparate resources to work together. And it can be fun. It can be interesting. Like when I got into Ethereum, I was already thinking about like NPCs and video games. And so to me, Ethereum has always been the AI L1. This idea of an AI L1 is like hilarious to me. And like, why don't we just like all work together? Like realistically also, if we all just like didn't fork and go do 1 billion L1s, like the whole Ethereum roadmap would have been shipped like 4 years ago. And so I hope that like that's obviously not the same case here, but what's kind of interesting about agents is that they actually become more valuable if there is interoperability. So we have sort of a good game theoretical reason to work together. And like, like Hedera is working on their thing, NEAR is working on their thing. They're all very smart people, but Hedera is not going to use NEAR's agent marketplace and vice versa. We are all at a game theoretical point where the only thing that's going to work is a smart contract that everyone equally hates, basically. If that, what do they say? Like compromises when everyone is equally unhappy. And so, my personal interest here, like I don't think I could take EIP-8004 and make the future of finance today. I think that's coming. but I could definitely make a fun game or a social or something new that's interesting that you would that's not just another fucking scrolling experience or clicker game. I think there's a whole world of unexplored stuff, and yeah. So, and what would be cool would be to make games together, like to make experiences together, to like have that bridge of interoperability that was promised with NFTs, but never really like broke through, you know. So anyway, yeah, that's my take.
Nice. So like to all of you folks, specifically with regards to the EIP and the introduction of the standard, what gap, whether it's just in Ethereum or the general, you know, blockchain and AI ecosystem, what do you think the problem is? What gap does this EIP really address? What is the problem that it solves?
I'd love to hear from you guys, but I can also give you a bit of my take. So let's hear from you guys who wrote it.
Yes, I can start. First, visibility. So you need a logical centralized entry point, just logically, a smart contract is great, to know who are the agents around. And right now it's not possible. And second, we have many techniques that we could use to trust agents. In our proposal, we propose three techniques that we have learned from the industry. And to be totally frank, we don't know which one will be successful. But the point is that having on-chain commitments of data to those techniques enable anybody to have the same visibility on the verification of the action of agents and to make this usable. So it's really about, I would say, making visible and speaking the same language in terms of trust to, I hope, trigger adoption.
Yeah, I agree. And my summary word is Schelling point again. Also, as Sean mentioned, I feel that like if you are in Ethereum for a while, then you become a radar for Schelling points. It's like you start looking for them, and like we felt that there is a lot of energy like around like building agents or like want to experiment with this. Like there is a few projects that are more seasoned, like OLAS, that have been trying to like bootstrap this agent economy for a long time. There is of course there is virtuals on Ethereum as well. The ELIZA community is huge. Yeah, so we felt I guess we are all saying the same thing. Is like the reason why this EIP looks like really lean is kind of a feature of it, not a bug. Some people have criticized this, but the idea is that we want to have some minimal Schelling point and allow like people to start experimenting, basically.
I have an analogy. So there's this time where like a bunch of physicists, astrophysicists, scientists were like, we want to know if there's life in the universe. And this guy, Drake, came along and said, okay, well, I'm going to create an equation. And it's like, if it's this many planets on around this many possible stars, this many possible galaxies that could have this much possible life. And it's like, so this is Drake's equation of how much life is out there. And for physicists and scientists, like it was not about the actual, like, this is how much life there is, but it was more like, here is a box. And if you solve your part and you solve your part and you solve your part, we can actually figure out how much life there is. But you like biologists have to do your thing. You like astrobiologists have to do your thing, you know, like all through the chain. And so it's more like, I'd say that the proposal is more about giving a box about these are the things we need to focus on to solve. And trust is the, like, discovery, like, you know, it's just, okay, cool. I can find you, you can find me. And then what falls out of that is like, but are you going to scam me? Are you really you? You know, all the same problems on social. And then obviously reputation. And then the other thing that's unique in agents is like, cool, you know me, but like, can you actually do the things you say you do, like benchmarking and these more like statistical things? And so definitely you can imagine there's going to be groups who are like, hey, we benchmark agents on this and we give them a rating. And there's going to be groups who say, we make sure that that's actually someone in KYC and not a scammer. And if you're probably going to have like a tapestry of trust, you know, like many different sort of trust scores coming into like a tapestry credential, and then some sort of algorithm there that's like deciding like, okay, cool, this is a person I want to talk to. And if I imagine I launched an agent today, I'd probably want some, like, I just want some registry to tell me that this list of agents can do what I want and won't scam me. And then I would probably, you know, like, am I willing to pay for that? well, then, so you're kind of almost abstracting and saying that there is no agent marketplace. There's more like a tapestry of trust providers and like people who are like authenticating this stuff in the background in some way. And so I think it's really interesting because like if I was starting over today, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm definitely doing a reputation marketplace. Like that sounds interesting.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, just to build on that, one of the registries is for identity, right? I think that in itself is quite a complex problem that we're yet to solve. Should we have a trustless environment where agents are interacting with each other, which I think that's where a lot of people, when they first think about agents on chain, they're kind of imagining that's where we're right now. But really, I guess the EIP and the standards, we still need to develop this. We still need to evolve this for that economy to start to emerge, which is quite interesting. I guess this is more to David and Marco. So, what was the biggest challenge you faced when drafting 8004? How did you overcome it? How did you approach it? What was the trail of thinking there?
Yeah, I feel like I consider this draft kind of the first version, right? So like our mindset is that this is an ERC, right? It's like a request for comment, right? Because we are trying to build this standard. So I feel there is some challenges in drafting this first version, and I think we have some challenges ahead to like bridge it to a mature standard. So maybe I'll let Marco talk about the first, and then I can say a little bit about the second one.
Sure. The hard stuff is always to be not opinionated enough to cover what's already covered by the industry, but best practices, but at the same time, opinionated enough to bring value. Otherwise, a standard is just like an empty page. We started working and we listened a lot, around 10 out of the 30, 40 projects we have talked to. But after the proposal has been made public, we received now, I think it's almost 40 reach out for building together from projects. So this is the beginning of a process that I think will take 2-3 months. I hope not more, but I'd like this to be in prod tomorrow, but it will not be the case. Where of course we will listen to requests and understand if we need to change the standard, always keeping it very unopinionated and very lightweight. Again, we are just using blockchains for what they need, which is provided consensus around visibility of a small set of data, and we will prioritize adoption. So basically frankly we don't care about having like a standard which is cool with big names but nobody uses that. And so we are really optimizing for adoption, and as the discussion will continue.
Interesting. And I guess to build onto that, from the conversation so far, why? So what is really interesting agent teams that are looking at the standard, and why do you think generally agent teams or people building on frameworks or agent protocols, wherever they might be, should care about this?
Yeah, so maybe I'll say something like one cool thing is that it's not just agent teams. So I see like basically there is like we need two things to make this successful. Like the first ingredient is like build really a standard that is like useful, like right. As Marco was saying, there is this trade-off by like trying to like have something very lean to allow experimentation, but still like useful. So that we maybe need like some people to like start experimenting more on the kind of infrastructures. Like let's call it infrastructure for trust, right? Yeah. So like there is this validation registry, but like someone will need to like start interacting with this and providing these services. And the cool thing is that, for example, Fala, Eigenlayer, they all like had like excitement after the proposal, and they reach out that they want to work on that part, right? Okay. And then the second ingredient is like actually like starting launching agents, right? And this is, to me, I want to hear more about this idea of like the game, because I also feel that a lot of innovation come from game, especially in AI and in multi-agent AI. I bet it's going to be the same thing. So yeah, the second ingredient is like start having like people experimenting with this.
Regarding who cares about this and actual use cases, so if we look at who reach out to us, actually the vast majority of projects are projects building platform of agents, which is not good in the terms of what we were saying before, because there are probably too many projects that are thinking about agent platforms, and of course they're super excited about having a trust system, a discovery, and not thinking about can I say the final user product. So this is in terms of analyzing who reached out to us in the last 10 days. If you ask, looking at the protocol, who do you hope that the protocol will help? It really depends on the trust model, because in terms of reputation, I see where you have low stakes. I see more projects related to entertainment, AI companion, gaming. So where if something goes wrong, nothing terrible happens. And actually here, the competition to this trust model, in my personal opinion, is just not having the trust model at all, because I'm just betting that that game is cool. So I think that this trust assumption could fail and not become popular just because people are fine when they just play, not to have any trust assumption at all. A totally different story is for the other two, which are stake secure validation. Maybe we will have time later today to go into the protocol, and trusted enclave keys attestation, where my answer is straightforward, is DeFi. When you have money at stake, you need to rebalance a portfolio, you need to move money, and of course you want, if something goes wrong, to have validators that are slashed and give you money. A T attestation, of course, you're fine in trusting NVIDIA and Intel. And so frankly, and it's not bad by itself, I see the usual pattern of DeFi guiding in terms of use cases that we have been seeing in Web3 in general, also popping up here.
I think you know, like Fala and Eigen also have I love a lot of their work, which is like Fala is obviously like big on TE research and the attestation, so it obviously makes sense that they're jumping on this train. What was I kind of going with this? I think that the like a lot of this focus on agents is on intelligent LLM agents, but also like the protocol could just serve like somewhat standard like API needs in like a decentralized trustless way, just with like standard like, you know, computers that send messages to each other like they always have. And so I think that there's I can imagine that this is going to be a protocol where you have sort of like what you see in MCP generally, of like some endpoints are just giving you information, or they're just like a better way to do like a trustless API login, blah, blah, blah. And then some are like full on, you are just communicating with another agent on the other end. So there's probably a spectrum here. And you could even have endpoints that are going to humans that are just like sitting there to respond to stuff, like answer CAPTCHAs or something like that. And that could be an A-to-A service as well. And so I definitely, like, I'm right with you, Marco, where I think like the future is that agents are going to transact like all coins, like 99.999% of all coins ever will probably be transacted programmatically between like companies and, you know, stable coins or whatever it is, global economy stuff. But is that 100 years in the future, or 50 or 20, or, you know, that's probably some, like, I think that there's definitely a lot of stepping stone stuff that we have to solve. And I think your point that like, do games even need this? Like a centralized game where it's one company just doesn't need it. And so it's really more like, is there a new genre of games that needs it? Is there a new interesting, like, you know, we're just not quite here, but we can definitely see a world of like a decentralized Disney with like open IP, and people are building upon various characters and ideas. And I think that extends to a lot of different stuff. Obviously, it's going to take quite a lot to get there, but you do need like some incentive. Like, is there some, like, if I put $1 million up and I said, okay, whoever builds the best agent that PvPs all the other agents on this A-to-A protocol, we probably get a lot of people jumping on that hackathon. And so maybe it just takes like saying on some level, like, I just think multi-agent is cool and fun and interesting. And I think like it doesn't have to be like, I can sort of prove that multi-agent is probably not as good as a super agent, like a single agent with a lot of tools for a lot of tasks because of the communication overhead. But that's not really the world I want to live in. I want to live in the world of like decentralized and distributed resources, and I want to have those kinds of experiences and games and social networks. And you can also have things like the 888 protocol would allow you to build like a gossip network just of ZK proofs, where like agents can pass proofs around to each other, and you can have a reputation system that's fixed, but also with a registry, you can have like soft reputation systems where agents can now like gossip with each other and trade information once they can discover each other. So I think there's a lot that's like unknown, but like if I was going to make a game around this, I'd be like, well, what's the game where like the agents have to rip each other off and scam each other and like break the trust model? And then the game is learning about how agents trust each other. Because I think if I had any like criticism, it's that, well, what you're intentionally blocking off is actually solving trust, which is the hard part. And it's kind of like, Drake coming in and saying, well, this is the Drake equation, now do the hard work. But at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, that's the box I want to play in. I'm really curious about how do we trust each other and how do we trust agents,
Interesting. And a lot of what you're saying across the board, I think resonates with what I see in the ELYZA builder ecosystem. I mean, we do have a very healthy DeFi sector with trading, yield management, payments, some stablecoin use cases. We do actually have a lot of people building in kind of like either disrupting what you class as classic categories, so like gaming, for example, and having a new take on games. But like, there's a matchmaking dating agent, for example, and
like Soulmates is like my favorite project idea.
Yeah.
You talk to an agent, and then the agent introduces you to other people who it's talked to. And so it's not, I just think, like, imagine that on an 888 protocol. You're like, what's a dating app look like on a decentralized protocol?
And when it comes to trusting the agent of the other person and what is the identity of that person, if you don't get that right, that's potentially not a great experience for somebody using that service, right? So I guess like contextualizing what you're saying with maybe what we're seeing in our own builder community. And if anyone's listening from our builder community and wants to throw questions in, please do. We're live in Discord as well. So guys, just switching up a little bit. So we're obviously here to talk around ERC-8004. If you haven't read the EIP, to those listening, do so whilst we're talking through this. But yeah, would you like to run through what this is, the standards it introduces, and yeah, all of the above and in between?
Sure. David, do you want to go? I can go as you want.
Yeah. Maybe, let me see.
Who wants to do the professor?
Maybe.
I was just joking. You have
Not me.
a better background for that.
Yeah, I'm the closest one, but let's see. I don't have slides for this, but okay. Yeah, let me.
Do you want to bring slides in?
Let me show. Is there a way I can share my screen?
Yeah, at the bottom, there's a screen in the middle, and I can bring it in for you if you want to.
Yeah, so let me share.
There you go. You ready for me to share that?
You guys can see.
I'll bring that in. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe we can just talk about it while we go over it.
Yeah.
So I feel that we already kind of discussed the motivation. Maybe to something that Shaw asked is like 808 was kind of like from the beginning we were thinking about MCP as well, especially because like even from what I'm seeing, like MCP like as much more usage like in the broader AI space, right? Because people are just putting like anything behind like the MCP, like wrapping any API behind MCP, right? Not even like dumb agents or API calls. But 808 was interesting because like in the protocol spec, they claim that this is like this general communication protocol between agents, and they want to like destroy organizational boundaries. But then in reality, they don't have payments, they don't have identity. At least they didn't have 2 months ago. Now, like there is different working groups on this. Also thanks to the hype we generated with this proposal. But yeah, so that's how we kind of stumbled on this. And essentially, like the idea here is we want to focus on like essentially like solving two main problems, which is one is discovery and one is trust. And the EIP is kind of structured around this, right? Because we have 3 registries. One is this identity registry for like agents, and then the other one, reputation and validation. They're all about like enabling like these trust models to emerge. Like we don't know which use cases will use which trust model, but yeah, we want to create this playing field for people to experiment. Yeah, so maybe let's talk about the 3 registries, which I think it's the most concrete thing that we can do. Maybe like some intro. We are using like this A2A protocol, like syntax where like there is this server agent, which is an agent that is offering services, and then is the client agent that essentially calls this API and can assign like tasks to this server agent. And then we introduce this validator agent, which it's essentially it's not directly in the A2A protocol. This is something we're adding, and this is like, and it's not like a validator in the blockchain sense of layer 1, but it's like any service that is going to validate like some task that is being carried on. And for this, we are essentially like expecting that there is these 2 main ways of validating. One is like crypto economic staking, and then the other one is essentially like actual verification, not just validation. So identity registry, and I think we can run through this in a few minutes because like really these 3 registries are very lightweight. So in the identity registry, we have like the agent ID, the agent domain, and the agent address. And then there is just 2 endpoints. One is to create a new agent, and the other one is like to update, of course. And there is a bunch of public resolvers. And then the important part is this agent card. So this is really coming from A2A, and I think this is the nice thing about A2A, that they thought a lot about, okay, how do you advertise your skills or your capabilities to like the other agents in the network? Is you have this agent card. And here, Marco, I don't know if you want to add a little bit on like kind of how we are adding like signature, like these are optional fields to the agent card.
Yes, the agent card is really the ID of agent, which is a JSON file which is exposed by the agent following the well-known standard. So we also try to follow standard here. We are adding, other than, again, the skills, the capabilities, the transport protocol, which is preferred by the agent, the pointer to the chain and the address and the ID of the agent. So basically, when you register an agent, you need to do 2 things. One on chain is to sign a transaction that registers the agent. And again, the ID is assigned by the smart contract on that single chain. And being single chain is one of the things that we would like to work on in the next 2 and 3 months to improve the proposal. Second, the domain, which is not verified. So you can just write any domain. And then, of course, the address, which is verified because you're signing a transaction. On the other hand, on your centralized server, you need to upload this JSON that points to the address. This means that any third party can just cross-check and check that the domain that you insert on chain is the one where you find the agent card, and vice versa, the agent card mentions the Ethereum address that you find on chain. And again, they're just pointers. Do you like the IDs? Do you like, you can have very complex on-chain identity system. What we need here is just an address. You point to them, no problem. And right. Maybe one last thing on this trust model that you see in the screen is very interesting because an agent can advertise which kind of trust model the agent supports. It's just a categorical, it's a list with categorical values. We can move to the reputation registry, where basically the agent server, when the agent accepts the job, give the possibility to the agent client to emit a feedback. Why? It's to avoid basically people judging a restaurant without having a dinner there. So on what you have on chain and it emits an event, and the event has this parameter, is this key that it's a feedback OTD. It's called. It's alphanumerical, and this enables the agent client, after having received the service, to publish within its agent card his feedback. That is usually, we suggest to be one like number. Then you can have any complex data structure. It really depends on the reputation system. And this is hosted off chain. And here we start seeing the general approach of this protocol. Technically, it's an interactive protocol where we put on chain only really the minimum needed to avoid cheating. For example, people giving a feedback to agent server they haven't worked with. But we are not solving the spam problem, the aggregation problem. So it's up to any third party participant, people creating marketplaces like, I don't know, DAppRadar. They're creating a DAppRadar agent marketplace. They could rely on this to download all the feedback starting from the starting points that are this feedback OTD that you see on chain, download everything from the agent client and do their own math. And frankly, I expect to have entire industries doing this potentially, exactly as we have in centralized finance. We have companies just rating companies to decide if I deserve a loan to buy a house, right?
Yeah.
I can maybe cover the last registry, or I don't know if you have questions.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking around the DAppRadar example. I like that because that's actually something with Eliza powering it, and just thinking how that registry would tie back into firstly the identity layer, but also the registry card that you just mentioned as well. So that centralized server that's off chain, and then the on chain identifier. So how do you see that evolving, or how do you see that playing out in like that example? Let's say, like, would DAppRadar host something and then use their own servers, or like what does that look like in play?
The centralized AWS server of DAppRadar, but you can actually develop the same from the client, is just by far less efficient because it does a lot of calls. Would do calls to get these IDs, so it's better to do that from the server. Basically, what everybody will do is to use index data. We just emit event on purpose. So you basically you say, give me all the events of this registry that are accept feedback. You get all the IDs. You download that from the different agent client servers. And again, probably we will have just service indexing this exactly as we do for everything.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a bunch of JSON with different structures based on, in this case, what DAppRadar is interested in reading, and the agent client were interested in giving as a feedback to that restaurant that's not for food, guys, that paid for. And then it's up to them first filter out the feedback that they don't think are relevant. So the protocol is not opinionated. We thought about that. So do we want to decide rules? But it would have been a suicide. It's the best recipe to not having this adopted in a way, deciding the rules to filter out. And then at the end, just to keep it simple for now, you can just do a weighted average of the feedback. There is a scoring value and list the stuff in the front end of the DAppRadar website. So this could be an example.
Got it. Nice.
We can move. Yes. Yeah. When it comes to validation, there are two approaches that we support. The first is called stake secured inference, which basically means you have validators that have something at stake that redo the job. And if you did the job bad, you are ranked as somebody that did the job bad, and they lose money, of course, if they're not good in saying if you did the work correctly. This approach, again, it's not something that David and I invented. It's very inspired by what EGLayer have worked on, also from a research perspective, for more than a year now.
Proof of stake.
Yes, well, of course.
EGLayer itself comes from proof of stake,
And we're all aware that inference is probabilistic and not deterministic, so it's useful for some cases. But the use case that I prefer, that I see very useful here is you need to rebalance $100 million at midnight every day with some kind of rules that are described in a prompt, right? And you don't want to trust an AWS server or just a random agent. And you like EVSs from a layer. Of course, the value stake needs to be higher than X, and the job is redone. And getting back to the specs, it's very lightweight. So what happens is that the agent server who did the job and is not staking anything. We don't require agent server to stake anything. Signs a validation request that we see in front of our eyes, which emits an event that specific AVS. So as you can see, when you ask a validation, this has been something else that we weren't sure about, but you need to know who you're asking the validation to. So it's not a general valid. So because it would be I know a bit of a stretch to think about a marketplace of validation service is just crazy. You just you send the validation request to somebody, and that off-chain.
And it can be a network.
Yes, it can be a network.
Like people are trying to build these where like the validation. Show was talking about it, like benchmarking or like judging outputs. It can be like multiple.
Yes, you just basically define what's the pointer, which is an Ethereum address, where the result will come from. Then it's all about who is implementing the protocol to build it as they want. In practice, in the case of EGLE, for example, you will have the AVS doing a sub call to our registry saying, okay, guys, this is good. This is well done. Or the opposite, of course. And the last example is based on hardware security mechanism. So TEs, Trusted Execution Environment, that for who is not familiar is basically something that we have in our pockets, in our iPhone, also in our for our MacBooks, and it's a signature, it's an attestation done by the chip itself that says not that the computation is correct. It just says I'm running this Docker image, this middleware. These were the input, and I'm signing this output. Full stop. And so basically, as far as you trust the hardware producer, you could be fine with the result. Then, since we're talking about AI, it's important to note that you don't know this inference probably is calling tools that are external, and you're not proving anything about what these external tools are returning. So it's not about that. So it has its limit. Each of these trust assumptions has its limitations. And so we try to keep it very lightweight. And you mentioned we mentioned earlier Fala and Eagle Layer. These are not the use cases. These are for me just the infra provider. And I'm super excited about, as Sho was saying, but seeing actually new kind of ways to approach this. For example, the reputation thing that we mentioned. Any game, any social network where somebody, for example, put a like on something else, on a content created by something else, this is an attestation. So you could easily create a social network where the most voted comment of video of the day win, just using the registry, the reputation registry.
I want to add something to that where I see T attestations as being very interesting is, so there's a lot of people trying to do decentralized inference as well. And so all of our agents are running somewhere, and usually we're calling a model somewhere else, if it's a decentralized model or a centralized model. And the problem with decentralized models is that there's just too much incentive for me to sell you like a 400 billion parameter model or like something like that and give you like a 7 billion parameter response. And so a lot of people have tried to solve this at the like hardware level and say, well, why don't we like check the actual model computation at runtime on that side? But it looks like it's going to slow everything down by about 2.5x, even if it's pretty optimized. And so like if you're slowing down computation and you're basically charging 2.5 more than ChatGPT is, it's going to be pretty hard to get adoption. But you can have, by having this reputation systems, you can actually let nodes provide inference like this directly to agents. So it's agents to inference, or like to services. But then they have they go, as long as you have some other validation system that's actually going and checking. So the way you do that is that LLMs actually are deterministic, but only if you can send them a seed, or they can send you the seed back with the actual call. And then you can run the exact same model somewhere else with the seed, and you can verify the output. So you can imagine like reputation systems that actually are kind of like optimistic, you know, in that like, yeah, someone's going to go up there and advertise this thing, but then like it's going to get indexed pretty quick and someone's going to run it and then they're going to compare it to somebody else's output. They'd be like, well, that's not right, you know, and then you get kicked off the network pretty quickly. And I'd really like to see these kinds of that is almost like I think a lot of like the Sentinel drones from Matrix, and how like for the Matrix to work efficiently, they basically had to remove all the security layers and just have like super scary agents chase people down if they were bad. I guess there's kind of an equivalent of like, we can actually offload a lot of the security requirements from the hardware layer and move them on to the network layer if we had a reliable reputation system. And everything would just get a lot faster.
That's super cool, very forward looking. I don't think we will have it in the next few months, but it's super exciting. And also it will not be enough to be cheaper than ChatGPT, because they're selling at loss thanks to SoftBank and all this. So that's
there's like Hyperbolic, and there's people like Hyperbolic selling at a loss too, and they're trying to get us on their decentralized stuff, and their prices are pretty good. I can't get the best models, but I can get like open source models and stuff from them. So there's definitely like some people in decentralized AI who will, I think, jump on this if they see a market opportunity. And then, you know, I think the really interesting thing is that reputation system. Like, how do you make it profitable to tell people they're good and bad? You know, I guess that, and then that will almost
incentives there.
Yeah, there's an interesting new industry just like waiting to emerge from that.
Yeah, interesting. So like this point is actually pretty cool. Like it's kind of related to like your comments about MCP, right? It's not the same thing, but essentially it seems what you have in your mind is kind of unbundling the notion of this agent, right? In the sense, okay, if this agent is composed of like maybe like some logical like operations that can be maybe easily verified, then like essentially you want to split those, and those are also calls within this network essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, in our own ecosystem, you know, we built like basically 200 plugins that we maintain for all the chains and all the things, and we're like, we should just lean on MCP. Like, we're just like wrapping things in MCP on our side and then having the agent contact those. And so then we're like, well, what if the agents are also MCP servers? And it kind of leads you back to just like the agent to agent protocol being a client server model. And so I see it as being very much a paradigm of like, this is actually just more about APIs becoming interoperable and then like us putting agents behind APIs at the same time. And so, yeah, I don't care if it's a model or if it's like the current weather or it's a full-on agent. Like, I just want to have a way to contact it. And I mean, it could be humans, you know, you could have people building probably not, but like
you will be humans, probably,
you know. I mean, humans probably at least writing up some of the validations or like you know, like yeah, I tried this agent and it sucked. You know, I don't know.
But even on the server side, I mean, like, this is a bit futuristic, but I was talking to like some robotics builders, and now like the paradigm is that okay, in order to get data, they do teleoperation at scale. Like, it's kind of the only way, and yeah, it's like, okay, you want like operator for like moving from A to B. Yeah, it could be a machine. It could be also like some.
I think there's a story there, which is like, we all think that VR failed, but VR is actually like an amazing robot technology, and like every VR company is now just being hijacked into robots. Meta obviously is into this, and maybe there's like kind of an equivalent where like you might not even know where this technology is going to get used, and we're like, yeah, the agents talking to each other. And it's going to be like something totally crazy and unexpected, you know. I don't know, although we should probably go for the expected things first. I think that there are low-hanging fruit cases here, though. It would be really great to see, like, something that I really always wanted to exist is just like a way, like some sort of competitive benchmark, you know, or like a game where the agents worked against each other, as opposed to like the AI town thing where they're all just yapping. I want like some PvP in there. I want to say like, yeah, no, Eliza is the best.
Competitive pressure, basically. I think this is actually one like theme in multi-agent, like because AI works because there is competitive pressure around. Like, okay, you have like
I want to tell people. Yeah, I'm like, Eliza's the best agent in the world. Look at the ranking. Like, we just crushed those fools, you know, whatever. Or we didn't, and we have to work harder. But I think that there's definitely, especially in this space, a big part of reputation would come down to just benchmarking and like knowing, like I think that's something that we in Web3 crypto have not done a lot of, because there's not nearly as much pressure as in like the AI space. is to just be like, no, look at this research. Like we are the best, you know, and it's kind of everyone just like arguing and marketing and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, a lot of it is like actually very measurable.
Yeah, I think that Benchmark will be together with memory. One of the big things that will change in the next year. It's clear to everybody that Benchmark are saturated, are not working anymore. They don't scale, and of course, too often we have just the data that should use to do the benchmark used in fine tuning to perform better. Demis, the founder of DeepMind, launched Game Arena on Koggle 3 weeks ago. There is a group I'm very close to that is launching a new company where basically the AIs plays against each other in trying to bet what the other AI will think. What do I mean technically? They try to guess the cross entropy of the open model. So this is just the beginning, and it's very bright. It's like, for humans, being smart is also understanding each other, right? We talk about human intelligence, and it will be the same. So I'm totally with you. And this is by far closer than other forward-looking things that we explore today. Closer as in like it's here already.
Yeah. I think if we made like of the things, people I think would actually be blown away if they saw like how good AI could be at like a full-fledged gaming experience. And a lot of the challenge has just been the people who can really pull that off have been like, yeah, we're going to build coding agents, or they just haven't, you know, it's just like a hard ass problem and it takes some work. But I really look forward to look, the only reason we're all here today is because like Carmack made Doom, and then Jensen made gaming graphics cards for Quake. And then pretty soon you have like, you know, Jan LeCun, like, oh, I can put this on a GPU, and then, you know, we're here. So I definitely think we should give credit to like play in the sandbox of not serious ideas, because, and also that's what's going to capture people's attention. Like if you look at everything I've done so much work and code and like projects, but it was like the dumb waifu thing that really stuck with people. You know, it was like the big boob offensive AI16Z thing that, you know. And I think there's actually like a story in there of like we should like be serious in our pursuit of truth and science, but very silly in our pursuit of like what's actually going to stick in the space. Because that probably will be the thing that wins.
On the basis we're 12, 24 months away from fully autonomous agents that can interact in DeFi, IMO. I think that is the opportunity short term, right? If you're looking to play with agent to agent networks or tools or games, that entertainment side really is where we can have some fun in the short term and not do it.
Crypto is really amenable to that, though. Like we don't give enough credit to like Bored Apes and metaverses and like silly things that ended up being very like actually I think drove the research in a lot of things in a way that people might not have expected.
I see. Mark, I didn't know if there was any further to go through on the trust model side, or if you wanted to maybe take a few questions that we've had coming through.
Let's see if we have questions.
Yeah, there was a question from Basin. So, would you love to unpack ERC-8051 and X402 in relation to 8004? Which I was curious about hearing.
I have some thoughts on that, unless you guys have thoughts.
So this is X402 and which?
6551, which is the unbound token accounts. So it's like
yeah.
I mean, while these guys are like, what the hell is 6551? Because I think that actually kind of went by all of us and was exciting for a minute, but I don't know if it got a lot of adoption. I think part of that is also as Ethereum is pursuing like just smart accounts generally, and we can just like spin up wallets. It hasn't really solved the use case, but it could definitely be like a thing if we, it's a good primitive. In terms of X402, like we are all, I think, moving in that direction. I think that's going to be the payment primitive. I'm sure you guys are looking at that. I think we're just doing that. X402 is actually an ancient web standard that's been resurrected, and that's a couple of different, obviously Coinbase and Constant and a few other folks. And so, yeah, I think we're all just jumping on the X402 train for every payment from here on out. And it's kind of a similar thing. It's like a shelling point for us.
I guess, like, how does that relate to a smart account or an agent-owned wallet that can operate in a trustless environment, right?
So I can confirm that we are looking closely X402, and we already have in the specs the suggestion to put a proof of payment as an optional value in the schema. While we have thought and we are thinking, it's mentioned in the specs already to use NFTs for the ownership of agent itself for the registry part, together with the ENS thing that needs to be supported. We haven't supported the token bounded wallet for the agent, just because actually this standard doesn't manage the wallet of the agent and what the agent uses to spend. But happy to leave the floor to Joe and David if you want to add.
Yeah, I actually remember looking into 6551 because when we were considering, okay, should the agent ID also be a token ID, like meaning that, okay, the agent is a transferable NFT, and then it makes sense to use this standard, essentially. But in the current version, we still didn't go there. I think we can consider it in the discussion.
I really love that. Like, I love NFTs, and I think they're a super useful primitive for some things. Like I love like Radium. It uses it so you can say like, oh, I could pass you the LP ownership. But I think that like if your goal is to make agents kind of their own thing, then it's sort of just like it actually adds another security risk layer. Like, what happens if someone steals my wallet and it's like, oh no, I got my fucking agent. It's like a whole thing. And I think a lot of the security concerns that have come up are like good in crypto, but then the practical reality is like if you will lose your keys and it will be super annoying, and we probably need more of like a multi-party computation approach. Like Lit Protocol has really thought about this idea of like, well, we could just like, like we don't need all that. We'll just have the agent be able to work through the smart contract, which we can then approve on. And I could see, I think like Safe, is working on this kind of thing, like these primitives where agents can perform actions as part of like a smart wallets are cool, but also like multi-sigs and stuff like that. Like the Lit protocol, you can just do with a multi-sig, and the agent signs everything. It goes over to Lit, but says unless the people have turned it off, I'll just auto sign. But then we have like an emergency cutoff switch. So I think that 6551 is like a good idea, but yeah, I like more the like what you guys are doing is more like ENS approach of like it's more of an on-chain registry of identity. And let's see, I assume you've already thought about like this should integrate with ENS. Because a lot of people are probably putting their
which wouldn't be compatible with the token bounded wallet approach.
Right, exactly. So I think that's definitely the right paradigm.
Actually, there is an extreme scenario where you could directly use ENS name instead of identity registry. Just adding as an extra attribute to the ENS attestation, the domain, which is or you just use it here the well-known as well to the same ENS domain, and you don't even need that, and you have everything for free.
I really like the idea that you can also let other people come to the table. Like there's a lot of the decentralized identity DID type of folks who have these like you can just go to they have sort of a form of attestation. It's all on the web. And it's a pretty small community, but you could like it sounds like a big tent solution here is to sort of like have a best practice, but then people can kind of do what they want, I like ENS. I think that integrating that would make a lot of sense, obviously.
You can complement this standard with ENS as well, right? It's not an either or.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying is you could actually use that as your identity card.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, there was a question around ENS, which I think we've basically just covered. I do have a question. So more when it comes to financial use cases and autonomous agents, when you are touching on MCPs or when you're looking at, I think it would be the identity registry, what point do you need to have, maybe an Oracle network involved or a decentralized solution involved for, I guess, the extra layer of, I've just called an MCP server and that piece of data I consumed was correct. Like, we're not there yet, and it's these things have to happen in a reasonable process. But yeah, I just wondered what you thought to that.
Can you give like an example of this?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say you're using social analytics or sentiment analysis to perform trades. Maybe not the best use case, but it's the thing I'm looking at. And that MCP server is a single call. Triggers the trades in a perps market, and for whatever reason it picked up the sentiment wrong, or something happened to corrupt your trade or something like that. Like, at what point that's probably not the best or most serious use case that I've came up with.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I was just trying to understand. So in this case, like the sentiment score provider would be like one agent, and it could be an Oracle network in itself, right? Like, because like this notion of I don't know if I'm understanding the question right, but you're saying, okay, what is the kind of trust property of like that service?
Yes, and like at what point do we need to be thinking around centralizing it? But when do you need to understand what that data point, where it came from? Is it trustworthy?
This is the huge opportunity. This is like the new industry is how do you prove, like there are people who I definitely trust. Like I would say I don't love Deck Screener, but if I go to Deck Screener and they say, hey, warning, I'm like, oh shit, I should really pay attention to that. And so like we do have to, at some point, there's a chain of trust from somewhere that you have to trust people. But you get to choose who you trust, and you get to choose like, who is my trust provider? So it's not baked into the network, but I can actually say, well, all I care about is like Twitter's social reputation. And there's this cool new startup that's like just aggregating social reputation from Twitter onto here or something like that, for example. I'm just going to sign up for that. And probably what's going to happen is that you'll have a lot of competition here, and you'll have a few like very clear winners that are just like the dominant reputation system sort of things. And I'm like, maybe we should pivot to that. That sounds pretty interesting. I come back to like, we don't have a lot of agents out in the world yet where that's necessitated, but I think it will be very soon, like a very important thing. And it's not just like calling an agent. Like if you're just calling any protocol, like, man, I signed up for this thing and they like totally stole my API keys and drained my wallet. And like, how do I have any recourse? And that kind of stuff happens to us all the time in crypto. And you're just like, yeah, sucks for you, dude. You got drained by like, they even have like a Google sponsored website, on like when you type in Hyperliquid, the first thing that comes up is a scam, for example. And so like, I think just having some kind of like generic on-chain reputation score at all to know what is real and what is not real would probably be really freaking helpful. And it just makes it way more, because AIs just have infinitely worse judgment than us. It's like infinitely more important, I think, that they have that kind of mechanism. So yeah, so the spec does not cover the actual thing, but I think it's opening up an industry to try and take that challenge on.
And not to be dramatic, but the point is that if we don't do this, we will have a centralized company that just does reputation of agents. Yeah. So the alternative is not this existing, is having that in a centralized way, and that's incredibly dangerous. It's having a central single point of failure that we all refer to decide who to trust for anything in terms of attention and services.
Nice. Something that's worth noting, X402 actually came out like in the early web. It was one of the early things, because people were thinking when they created the web, like, well, everyone's going to have to pay each other. Like, obviously. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And what happened is PayPal, right? Well, X.com, which was a bank, which became PayPal, which then became X somehow again. But PayPal basically like went and just did the thing and became the centralized payments for the internet for a while, right? And now they've got some competition, but generally like it's still kind of just entrenched. And that's actually made everything in the internet suddenly like way harder. You cannot give your agent a PayPal account. You cannot have your website charge people money. Like there are just things that we take for granted that you could do in 1993 or whatever that you cannot do today.
So we're just getting back to the initial vision.
Yeah. But we should learn that lesson. Like, why didn't it work? And it's because the centralized competitor did win, right? They did just give the like super easy thing, and they did it in a really shady way. Like Peter Thiel, like famously, what they did was they would just go and email every eBay seller and say, "Hey, do you take PayPal?" And so it's like you're not just up against like decentralization is up against people who will fight like with every dirty trick to beat you. And so that it really is about that Schelling point where you got to get enough people who are like, well, we should beat them with our dirty tricks. Like, if you can align the NEAR and Hedera and like all the players and that, like, all these people who are like ostensibly fighting for each other, but really all just need users and volume, then suddenly everyone lines up and is like, yeah, let's do this thing,
Maybe one day.
I guess if you're just like have money and power, you can say this is what we're doing now, and hopefully we can like get there and push that.
I mean, the whole EVM ecosystem has quite a lot of weight behind it. Maybe all the rollups and Ethereum team up one day, and that's quite a force, right? What's next for the EIP? What's the process from here for you to continue the exploration of the feedback you've had, and when do you hope to submit it, or how does that all play out from here?
Yeah, so it's already live as a draft, right?
Yeah.
So the review process, I think the best way to engage is that there is the Ethereum Magicians forum, where this is being discussed, and actually we've had quite a few comments there that we are considering including in the next version, and then reaching out to me or Marco. We already have a Telegram group with some builders that have committed to build on this, and I feel over the next few weeks we will get a bit more structured with kind of this working group.
Okay.
Marco, you want to add?
Yes, we really like the scientific contribution. Also, people in the group that is building to remain on Ethereum Magician, so the entire community can benefit from the different perspectives. We discussed offline about putting more data on chain. That's very discussed in the Ethereum Magician group. So we will basically try to put order in the discussion, prioritizing for adoption, as I said. And something else that we are working on, which is important, is to bring on board also large corporation in Web3 and Web2 to make sure that this community proposal is more and more owned by everybody in a sense, because there are many groups building in the agent space. So we are trying to find a balance between being, of course, focused on adoption and for example, making sure that this is very integrated with X402 and other of the things that we mentioned today. So please write on Ethereum Magician, reach out to us. We're super excited about having everything, I think, finalized by the end of the year with many projects in production would be a huge success.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier, if this was overlined by Christmas, that would be a nice gift.
That would be the perfect gift for Christmas.
Yeah.
Let's put some ambitious deadline, mid-November.
We'll have to get you both into the builder chat that we have and connect you to the teams and start that conversation. And yeah, I mean, if you're listening and want to reach out to the guys, I'll put your details in. Well, it's on the proposal, right? So you just head to that URL. So I'll drop that in the description. But yeah, I think let's call that a wrap. Thank you so much for joining. It's an absolute privilege to jump into the topic with you and kind of jump around with the different ideas. I think excited to see how this all plays out. In the next, not only short term, but mid and long term as well. And it's good to see that these things are starting to come together. It's what we need to be doing for the next step. So yeah, thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Cheers.